In today's episode of the Pathfunk Presents podcast, I have an interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Pete Eisen, and he's hailing over as the VP of Sales at Claira. And Claira is a very, very interesting and unique solution. It's all about optimizing human capital, but what that really means is we want to really deep dive into what it is. It's an AI-powered competency technology, and we want to figure out how it's leveraging machine learning to really identify the true potential of the workforce. So, Pete, welcome to the show.
Nice to meet you, and thanks for having me on.
Sure. So for everybody who hasn't really heard about Claira yet, maybe give us a quick overview. What is it all about in your own words?
Yeah, so our founder, Katie, had been working in the workforce world for 10 years, and she was traveling around the world and the country building competency models for large organizations. And the competency models are great ways to model your organization, so you're putting people in the right position to get the job done. But what she found was there was no software out there that could actually support that. So she went back to actually get her master's at MIT and formed a small team of developers to solve for that particular problem of automating the competency models so that it could become more accessible to more organizations. And at the same time, is because it's real time and it's AI and machine learning based, is it's going to get smarter and give you better recommendations as you move forward, and it's going to stay accurate to your workforce as you move forward versus being a snapshot.
That makes a lot of sense. So now maybe tell us a little bit about sort of what types of organizations use the technology. What are the main use cases? What is the context that is being leveraged in? Maybe give us a quick overview.
Yeah, so we actually really focus in onto the mid-size to large enterprise businesses. We actually do have a customer of 10 people though, so it can be applied through a broad range of client size. But what we're finding is that the customers that are getting the best usage of it is they are folks that have been out in the marketplace and they believe in competency models. They might be investing in it. They might be building some of their own framework out there, because what they're realizing is resumes and job descriptions aren't solving the problem of the talent issues that corporations are having. One thing that you hear from CEOs constantly is our number one problem is the skills gap. And if you look at all the digital assets out there today, there's never been more free training. There's never been more training. There's never been more paid training. But that gap continues to grow. It continues to be a top focus for CEOs. So the idea here is any company that is really in the manufacturing space, advanced manufacturing, technology companies that are looking to solve for that problem are getting really great results into, hey, first, let's take a look at our internal employees and see what they can actually do. And then as we look to hire, then we can fill in the gaps from a competency and hidden talent perspective to get the job done faster and better.
It makes a lot of sense. Now, who within those organizations would typically be the champion? Like who's saying, we need something like Claire? Is that actually from the HR team? Does it come sort of roots up? Because, employees kind of, like where does it come from?
Yes, actually, what's been interesting on our journey is HR is absolutely involved. A lot of times they are the super user of Claira. However, we're really finding, because of the speed and the precision, the term we use is agility and precision that we're able to deliver, is operational leadership tends to be really involved in this decision-making process, because it's something like, that's why we play very well in the manufacturing space. It is something that a GM of a plant, for example, can sit down and say, hey, this person called in sick. Who else can fill in for this role? So instead of having that line shut down for that day, they can plug in the right person. They know where their bench strength is coming from. So that's it's an HR solution, but a lot of times this, like a chief operating officer, CEO, chief innovation officers, getting involved, chief product officers, because they're looking at their actual framework of their team. And also, I would say when you look at a lot of companies that have also done well are engineering firms, where you're talking about project-based team. So you have teams and projects. Claire is able to help you build those teams and those projects out quickly for you.
Very cool. Now, how do these folks learn about Claire? Like, what's their journey looking like? How do they get to the thought that this is helpful? Like, maybe tell us a bit about their journey or the client acquisition channels you guys leverage.
Yes. So we initially started off as working on, like most startups, referrals, looking at your network and who you know. Then when I came on board, I was the first, we transitioned from CEO-led sales over to, me leading the sales team and then building out a few account executives and BDRs. And then what we're finding is we're trying to, the challenge we have, right, is finding the right company that's in the motion of saying, hey, I have these particular pain points. I really need to quickly solve for my workforce issues today and get the right person in the right seat today. So what we're finding is we're actually switching more to an inbound motion, if you will. And that is because we need people to be educating themselves. If you look at how people buy software, there's a certain number of research a lot of times before they're engaging the sales team. So it's really hard for a salesperson to call out and find the right decision maker and say, I know you're having this problem today. So by pulling in like intent data, inbound motions, we should have more success as we move forward.
Yeah, let's maybe speak 1 second on outbound and sales motion, and then we go back to the inbound motion. On the sales motion, maybe you mentioned the building the sales team. Like, what was your personal experience? Is that a remote sales team? Is it a local sales team? Like, what was the experience like, and what do you think is important for building such a tight-knit sales team?
Yes, so we are all remote. Claira is a 100% remote organization, and I've been in the remote world now for about 5 years. So it's something that has been challenging and fun. I find that what I look for, and I don't know if it's necessarily you're asking me, what do I look for in people and what makes it successful, is it's pretty simple. I find is like, are people naturally curious out there learning on a daily basis? Are they able to use the technology that we provide to them? Sorry. Are we able to use, I didn't realize my ringer was on. Are they able to use technology that we provide to them? I believe that a heavy tech stack for salespeople just enables and automates what they can do on day out basis, so that they're not doing the old fashioned, we're going to make 200 dials on a Tuesday, if you will. It's more of like the right touches at the right time to the right people is what's driven. So that's where the curiosity comes in. And then beyond that, it's consistent collaboration across different technologies so that we're staying in contact. We use Slack and we use Zoom. We have not too many meetings because they're sales folks, so they don't want to be talking to me all that much. But the idea is creating that fun culture where they can come in and communicate and share and build. So,
any tips for sales teams builders out there on a remote team for how to get the team? Anything that you've learned that is a great source or channel for people to build that sales team up remotely?
Yeah. I would say when you're looking at hiring the folks, is as everyone says, it's about finding the right people. And for me, it's always come down to, are they self-sufficient individuals that are confident and really want to get and do more at, not necessarily for promotion, but just want, like, I haven't found that passive, like president's clubs or anything like that's actually related. That's been less important in the remote world. Mm-hmm. It's more of that, hey, I'm excited to be here. I want to work. And I know this is a challenge. This isn't, I always talk about, like, there's 2 types of sales processes. When you're doing the remote force and you're at a startup, it's you're basically doing helicopter skiing for those that have skied, right? You got to make your own path. You got to find your own trail. So you have to find people that are very comfortable finding the way down and using the process to guide them by using good technique. But I don't have the path driven out for them. Versus like the bobsled technique, where companies get more mature. It's like, well, here's your exact sales process. Here's the 12 scripts you can use and move forward. So that would be, find those people that are curious and adaptable.
Perfect. Maybe last question on that before we move to the inbound world, in terms of, or maybe 2 questions actually that were coming up. I think because they're coming up from the community a bit, so I'm bringing it up to you since you have been building up the team. Any go-to place where they should recruit? Was it just LinkedIn? Any remote specific sales communities? Anything that you found very helpful?
Yeah, I heavily use LinkedIn to recruit people. I believe that if you're always constantly growing your network and reaching out to people, and you can get people connect, it's just a matter of time. Like, you're trying to find the person that is based on, like, looking at their track record. And here I'm saying success isn't necessarily the number 1 virtue of being successful here, but it's, are they out there? Are they presenting? You can see how they interact with other businesses? Are they active on there? I'm a big believer in social selling. So that's how I use LinkedIn, is to say, hey, I'm going to continue to try to connect with different sellers, build my network. Two is I believe in referrals. So if you hire somebody, ask for referral. People that you worked with in the past, it's great to reach out to them and say, hey, I'm not going to recruit off your team per se. Now, if anybody on your team wants to jump over, that's definitely cool. But who do you know? Who else have you talked to that's fits these characteristics or these competency skill sets that would make sense for you? And then I think the other interesting thing is there's a lot of sales groups on LinkedIn, and finding people that are actually active on those sales groups is always an amazing spot to find sales talent.
Very cool.
If they're active, asking questions, and they're naturally curious, they're learning, those are great people to bring in.
Makes a lot of sense. Last thing on the outbound side of things, you guys are obviously having a product that requires explanation, right? It's not necessarily that everybody knows that it even exists. They don't know how, like, it's not what they naturally think on a day-to-day basis. What have you learned on outbound for a product like that? Maybe on a more abstract level, like what's important when you outbound selling something that is more complex versus a household sort of product?
Yes, that is definitely something that we've been working through since I've been here. It's finding, we always talk about product market fit, right? You want to find that, but you have to be able to deliver that in a clear, concise message when you do get outbound phones, because you have, like, if you get somebody on the phone or it's an email, it has to be pinpoint and accurate, and it has to make sense. So basically what I'm saying to them is what they're doing today is wrong and not going to be effectively solve their problems. So they need to switch. So I have to be able to say that clear, concise, and so that it isn't so far like outside the box that they're like, yeah, that's an outer space. It needs to be running on the edges of the box, so that they're like, yes, I can see how this relates to what I'm doing today. Cool. But it's different.
Makes sense. Yeah, then let's switch on inbound a little bit. Because you guys are building out inbound at the moment. What role do you think the website plays today? Like, how do you think about the page?
Yes, so we're consistently updating our website as we're moving more towards the inbound motion. It acts as this. It should be acting right now. It's not 100% where we need it to be, but it should be the spot where the customer can go out and learn about Claira. It can learn about not just Claira, but competencies. It can learn about workforce. It can learn about the trends in hiring, the trends in retention, the trends in training. That's the idea behind it. Is as we build it out, it should be a resource so that at the right time, no matter where you are in your buying journey, you can go in and go to Claira and use it as a resource to find answers. Right? So that's like, if we were in a perfect world, in a perfect spot, it would be a resource for buyers to go in and say, hey, this is where I am. And then it would signal to us like, hey, this is how we should approach this person.
Now, we talked a lot about sort of, what you guys are doing. We talked about the two different channels a little bit. I would love to learn a little bit more about yourself, right? So obviously you're heading up sales, also part of marketing as well at the moment. Where do you personally like to educate yourself? Like, there's so much content, there's so much stuff you could learn. Where do you kind of like to educate yourself?
Yes, that's a fair question. So I still read books, and I try to read a lot of books. I also use Audible. I have a pretty large Audible library, so I do that. And then also I'm always looking at different podcasts. I can't say that I stick to any one podcast for like years. One of them, for example, I've always like, there's a Jeb Blount releases a lot of good stuff. SaaStr, which is a big into the SaaS world. I listen to that podcast quite frequently. There's probably, like, on LinkedIn also, there's always like good posts that people are like releasing on, like, hey, here's some latest trends in sales, here's some latest trends in marketing, here's some great talk tracks. And then beyond that, it's actually literally directly contacting people. Like, if I find someone post something online and I'm like, wow, that's really great, I'm actually gonna, a lot of times I'll actually reach out to that person, see if I can't get like 15 to 20 minutes to garner and steal some of their information. And I don't know if it's stealing, but it's certainly borrowing their intelligence so that I can bring it on. So I'm just trying to talk to as many people, read as much as possible, and listen so that I can stay ahead of trends.
I got some rapid fire questions to wrap it up for today. Are you ready for those?
I am ready.
What is the last book that you read?
The last book I read, actually, it's right here. It's Influence by Robert Cialdini.
Mm-hmm. What is one single thing that your company is focused on the most at the moment?
Yeah, I would say it's just consistently building out our product, and also, like, as we're looking for that inbound motion, is also developing some product-led growth. So we're figuring out how to continue to make the technology a lighter lift for the implementation team to align with what the sales team is out there talking about. Because the quicker we can get out to the marketplace, and the faster it is, the bigger separation it has for us.
Mm-hmm. What's one single thing that your thing that you would fix for your role, right? If there would be no boundaries in technology anymore. So yeah, I got a magic wand. One thing you could fix for being a sales and then a growth leader in this world, what would you fix?
I would make it so that the intent data, and actually, as you were explaining, what PathMonk does, like, make it easier for all that intent data to go into one spot. Because I find, as a revenue leader, like, I'm trying to pull on 12 different intent data, website data, to make sure I'm going after the right people. So anybody can make that simpler and easier for the sales team so they can be more effective. I would love that.
Makes a lot of sense. Very last question, right? Let's go back to the days of the University of Mary Washington, right? You're heading
Sure.
out of formal education into the world of business. What's the one advice you would give yourself?
I would say enter the business world with humility, because at some point you're gonna become humble, and the sooner you fail, the quicker you'll be able to get to success.
Pete, we appreciate you took the time with us today to be a guest on PathMonk Presents. I want to give you the very last word. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed about Claira, what's the one thing that they should remember?
Yeah, I would say that, and I'm going to steal this from Katie, our CEO, is all right. When we look at it, is like, one thing we hate is inefficiency, but what we hate more than that is inequality in the workplace, and that's what we're driving for.
Thanks a lot for being a guest on PathMonk Presents.
Sounds good. Thanks, Lucas.